There's a cat sitting on a windowsill right now. You're across the room. You haven't moved. You haven't made a sound. But the second you look directly at it, it turns and looks straight back at you. You've probably laughed that off before. Written it off as coincidence. Or just one of those weird cat things. But here's the question nobody asks out loud. What if it isn't coincidence? What if the animal actually felt your gaze land on it, before it had any logical reason to know you were looking? And what if that ability, to know when eyes are on you, is one of the oldest, most powerful survival tools on the planet? One that animals never lost. And one that we almost completely did. Let's start with something that happens to you every day without you noticing. You're in a crowded room. Nobody says your name. Nobody taps your shoulder. And yet, you turn around, and someone is staring directly at you. Scientists call this gaze detection. And it's real. Your brain has dedicated neural circuitry, specifically in the superior temporal sulcus, that fires in response to being watched. It doesn't require sound. It doesn't require touch. Just the direction of someone's attention. The theory is that this evolved as a threat detection system. Predators stare before they strike. So animals that could feel a gaze before seeing it survived longer than ones that couldn't. Here's where it gets interesting. That system didn't start with humans. It started hundreds of millions of years before us. And in most animals, it never weakened. It got sharper. A 2003 study by researcher Rupert Sheldrake, controversial, dismissed by some, replicated by others, filmed dogs at home while their owners were miles away. He wanted to know if dogs reacted the moment their owner decided to come home. Not when the car pulled in. Not when the door opened. The moment the owner made the decision. The dogs did. Consistently. They got up. Moved to the window or the door. Became alert, at the exact moment their owner started heading back, before any physical signal was possible. The skeptics said the dogs had learned time patterns. Routines. That it was just a schedule. So Sheldrake randomized the return times. Sent owners home at completely unpredictable moments. The dogs still reacted. Nobody has a clean explanation for this. But here's what we do know. A dog's sensory range is not limited to what's in the room. They can hear frequencies you can't. They can smell hormonal changes in your body from another floor of the house. They can detect your electromagnetic field. Yes, that's a real thing, at close range. Being watched to an animal may not mean eyes on body. It might mean attention directed at them. Energy focused their way. And some animals appear to feel the difference between the two. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most of the research on gaze detection in animals comes not from studying pets, but from studying prey. Because for a mouse, a rabbit, a deer, feeling a predator's gaze before the predator moves isn't a cute trick. It's the difference between living and not. In 2015, researchers studied how zebras in the wild responded to direct human gaze versus averted gaze. Same distance, same posture, same everything. Just the direction of the eyes changed. When researchers looked directly at them, the zebras started moving away, earlier, faster, and at greater distances than when the researcher looked slightly to the side. They weren't reacting to movement. They weren't reacting to sound. They were reacting to the gaze itself. Crows are even harder to dismiss. Studies in Seattle found that crows remember individual human faces. If a specific person had threatened them, they'd react with alarm calls when that person appeared, even years later, even if that person was wearing different clothes. But the more recent discovery is stranger. Crows don't just recognize faces. They notice when you're watching them specifically. If a crow is hiding food and a human is watching directly, they'll abandon the cache and move it later. If the human is present but looking away, they'll often leave it. They are tracking your attention. Not just your presence, your focus. That requires a model of your mind. An understanding that your eyes represent directed awareness. That where you look is where your mind is pointed. That's not instinct. That's theory of mind. In 1993, psychologist Marianne Sheldrake, no relation to Rupert, ran a simple experiment. She had people stare at the backs of strangers' heads through a one-way mirror. The strangers had no visual or auditory cues. No way to know they were being watched. Over thousands of trials, people correctly sensed they were being stared at significantly more often than chance. Not every time. Not even most of the time. But enough to be statistically meaningful. The experiment has been repeated, criticized, debated. It remains unresolved. But here's what's undeniable. When you factor in animals, when you look at how consistently prey animals respond to direct gaze, how consistently dogs track their owner's attention, how deliberately crows manage what you see versus what you don't, a pattern starts forming. Something is being transmitted when one creature focuses its attention on another. We don't have a name for it yet. We don't have a mechanism. We just have the behavior. Repeated. Across species. Across millions of years. And the most unsettling version of this question isn't whether animals know when you're watching them. It's whether they've always known, and whether we used to know too. There's a theory in evolutionary biology called sensory trade-off. The idea is simple. You can't optimize everything. When one sense sharpens, another tends to dull. When one ability strengthens, another weakens. Humans developed language, abstract thought, the ability to plan decades into the future, to build cities, to write this script, to watch it on a screen. And somewhere in that trade, our felt sense of being observed, the raw animal awareness of another creature's attention, got quieter. Not gone, just quieter. Because it's still there when you walk into a dark parking lot and something in your body says don't. Still there when you wake up at 3 a.m. certain someone is in the room. Still there in the crowd when you turn around and find the eyes already on you. The hardware didn't disappear. We just stopped listening to it. Animals didn't stop listening. They never had the option. There's a study from Kyoto University where researchers tested whether dogs followed a human's gaze to locate a hidden treat. They did. Easily. Then the researchers tested something else. They had the human look toward the treat, but only when the human thought the dog wasn't watching. The dog still followed the gaze. Still found the treat. But then, and this is the part that stayed with the researchers, some dogs looked back at the human afterward. Not at the treat. At the human. As if checking. As if confirming. You thought I wasn't watching. I was. We spend a lot of time wondering what animals know about the world. About death, about fairness, about their own existence. But maybe the more honest question is what they know about us. Because here's what the research keeps suggesting, quietly, study after study. They are paying attention to you in ways you haven't started to measure yet. They know when you're sad. They know when you're afraid. And according to more evidence than most people are comfortable with, they know when you're watching. Which means they probably also know something else. That you're watching right now.